I get to look at this, and I'm sure somebody's probably going to trademark it before me. And it seems like every card, I have a few fights where I get the opportunity to say this. And in my best Coolio impression, we've been spending most of our lives living in a striker's paradise. And this is another one of those fights. And I love fights like this. We have Brad Quake Riddell coming at us, the former striking coach at Phuket Top Team, or sorry, Tiger Muay Thai. It wasn't Phuket Top Team. Out of Phuket, and he's taking on Aleksa Silva. And Matt, Aleksa Silva, I know if you look at his record in his last 5 fights, he's 3-2. He's taken on competition. This is a guy that really lights it up on the feet as well. And that's why it makes for such an interesting fight. A longer fighter in this division. So that's what also adds a little bit of a wrinkle into this one. And for Brad Riddell, I mean, he does have that one loss on his record. He's on a tidy little win streak. And we've seen what Tiger Muay Thai striking coaches have done as of late. Go look at Rafael Fiziev and his fight against Mark Jacasey. But Brad Riddell, the OG, you had Fiziev taking over for him at Tiger Muay Thai. And what can we say to Brad Riddell? I mean, he's a main training partner with Alexander Volkanovski. Do you know him? You probably should. You saw him in his corner when you saw Volkanovski defending his belt against Holloway in their rematch. Now, for Brad Riddell, so far in the UFC, I don't want to say it's been a mixed bag, but it's been 2 totally different fights, because in the Jamie Malarkey fight, he looked amazing. In the fight against Magomed Mustafayev, it was another one of those strikers paradise type of fights where Mustafayev is the type of guy to go in there and throw a spinning wheel kick and knock your lights totally out. In that fight, he definitely passed the test. It was a close decision win. I know I looked it up over on Best Fight Odds, and it kind of went both ways. There were more people that had votes for Mustafayev, and more people scored the fight for Mustafayev. If you looked at the overall decision, 29-28 Riddell, 29-28 Mustafayev, and then the other judge scoring it for Riddell. I believe I'd scored it Magomed Mustafayev at 29-28, but again, it was a really close fight. There were a couple of media scores, 30-27 for Riddell. All that to say that he can, if it goes to the ground, I don't worry about him too much. But when it's on the feet, this guy can light you the F up. So what do you make out of this one? Because I think Aleksa Silva, yeah, you lose a fight to Alexander Yakovlev by submission. All right, that's not good, because Alexander Yakovlev so far in the UFC, mixed bag. You beat Kazula Vargas. Okay.
Doesn't tell you much.
All right, doesn't tell you a whole lot. So you got to go back and watch his performances on the regional scene. He's lighting guys up. Really young guy, too, for the division, to have so much experience. He's going to walk into the octagon a few months shy of his 25th birthday. So it's nice to see a guy that's 21-2. Maybe it's been a mixed bag of competition, but at least you have that experience coming into the UFC. So overall, you've got a really, really technical, high-level striker, and you've got a guy that's done it on the regional scene, young guy. What do you make of this one?
This is a super exciting fight that I could see play out as fight of the night, only if Adesanya and Costa wasn't the main event. Because this is one of those fights that you look at in the card and you sort of highlight it. You're like, okay, no matter what I'm doing that night, I'm going to make sure I'm at my TV for at least this fight. And I don't really think you told the story of that Mustafayev fight all that well, because in that fight, every time they were on the feet, Brad Riddell was lighting him on fire, and he was landing combinations, body shots, headshots. It was just Mustafayev would get a takedown and just sort of not lay and pray, because that's not really his style, but at least in that fight, he would secure the takedown, not do much, but just gather a whole bunch of top control time. So at the end of the fight, you look at it and you're like, okay, when they were on the feet, or who did the most damage? Well, Brad Riddell did by far the most damage. He got knocked down. He landed a bunch of strikes on the feet. It's just Mustafayev had a lot of control time. So it depends on what you value more. I did think Riddell won that fight. And this fight should be entertaining because, like you had mentioned, you're not just talking about a good striker. You're talking about a guy who was the main striking coach at Tiger Muay Thai, which is one of the better striking gyms in the world. So to have him transition over at MMA, and now he's training with guys like Alexander Volkanovski, Dan Hooker, Israel Adesanya, like that's a great team that City Kickboxing has right now. And I don't really think we're going to realize till like years down the line of how crazy their roster right now is of fighters. You have 2 champions, another top 5 guy, and then a guy who looks like he is kind of on his way to become a future top 15 guy in Riddell. This fight will be interesting because you have that kind of really good, nice technique of Riddell versus sort of the wildness of De Silva. And I hate to mention this all the time when you have a long Brazilian fighter, but De Silva does fight a lot like Brazilian Cowboy. He's got that sort of kind of herky jerk style where he lunges forward. It's kind of Nico Price-esque too, because when you look at Nico Price fight, he kind of lunges with that right hand. He throws those whipping front kicks. De Silva's going to offer you a little bit of that stuff too, but the only downside for De Silva is the thing he's really good at, Brad Riddell's great at. So I just don't see him being able to outstrike Brad Riddell for 15 minutes in an MMA fight.
Yeah, it's a tough one to try and side with De Silva. And I know Brad Riddell, he opened as minus 240 favorite. That line dropped off the bat to minus 300. He now sits at minus 325. So a bit of a trickle down effect for him. De Silva opened plus 205. Again, all the way up. And now he's at a plus 254 according to Best Fight Odds. And that's just an average of all the sites. If you look over at the votes on Tapology, 852 votes, 88% going Riddell, 71% predicting a win by decision. I got to agree with the fan voting. I got to agree with the odds there. And I remember when De Silva made his UFC debut, and not to say that it was crickets, but for a guy to have that much experience being a young fighter, it was kind of like, why aren't we hearing more about him? I remember on the broadcast, I think it was Bisping gave him quite a bit of shine as he made the walk to the octagon. Like, this guy's been there and done that. This guy has a ton of finishes. You should watch out for him. And that's all I heard about him fight week. And then he gets submitted by Alexander Yakovlev, the most vanilla version of a lightweight fighter that really, footnote in the entirety of the division. So You lose that fight. You beat Kazula Vargas, who lost to Brock Weaver. That doesn't tell me much at all. So yeah, I do like what you say too, because I think this fight plays out not really like Bobby Green and Alan Patrick, but you have kind of similar styles in there where Bobby Green is he a more technical boxer than Brad Riddell is? Yeah, but Brad Riddell is one of the better strikers that you're going to find in this division in total, taking on a bit of a question mark in De Silva. Has De Silva made, leaps and bounds moves since he had that fight against Kazula Vargas? And I mean, a win, I should add, too, about a year ago. I don't know. We haven't really seen it. So, yeah, I have to side with the guy that we've seen a lot more on in terms of fight-ready competition, in terms of the pedigree of striking in Brad Riddell. And I think it's a bit of a no-brainer to go with Riddell here.
Yeah, I do think Brad Riddell is going to be like the Vicente Luque of 155. Like, he's going to be a guy who's going to finish a lot of guys, have really exciting fights. Will he win the title? Maybe, maybe not. But at the end of the day, you don't really care. You need just exciting fighters at a certain point. And I think he's going to be one of those guys who's in that top, maybe 6 on his best day to like 15 on his worst day. And you're always just going to be looking forward to that fighting. So I do think Brad Riddell is going to be able to get it done.
Well, Matt, we're really looking forward to this. Both going with City Kickboxing Zone, Brad Riddell to pick up the win. And hey, is City Kickboxing Zone going to get the win in the main event between Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa? You're going to have to check out that extended preview, including an extended look at our co-main event between Jan Blachowicz and Dominick Reyes. So keep it locked in with Fight Name Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.